Welcome to Brain Junk. I'm Amy Barton.
And I'm Trace Kerr. And, okay, right now I want you to think about, you've got your smartphone on you. Where is it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it vibrating? If you can, that's hypovibrochondria.
Ooh, that is a good word.
It's the phantom vibration syndrome. 90% of us experience it. It relates to this funny thing called pareidolia, where the brain tries to fill in gaps in information that it's processing to make sense of what's going on. So, normally if you feel a scratchy sensation, you might think, oh, it's a bug, and you're going to scratch it. Well, we've got these phones in our pockets, and we're trying to make patterns, and so the brain feels a twitchy, like maybe a little twitch in your butt, or a piece of your clothing is moved, wherever you normally keep your phone, and the brain says, oh, I know what that is. That must be the phone. And so it tells you you're feeling your phone buzzing even when you don't.
I have wondered the why of it, because I knew it was a brain thing, but why does your brain tell you it is when it's not?
Yeah. One of the science journals that I read mentioned that up until about 15 to 20 years ago, this was not a thing because we didn't have stuff. In the 90s, we had pagers, and this is when they started seeing that happen because the pagers would vibrate. Yeah. And so people were grabbing their belts thinking their pagers were vibrating. Now we grab our butt cheeks because we think our phones are vibrating. All of this relates to the fact that today we're going to be talking about everything you never knew you wanted to know about your brain. So what are we gonna lead off here with? Are you gonna ring a bell? Are you gonna make me drool?
I hope so. I know there are probably, I should have thought about that, trying to get you to do a thing.
Elicit a response.
Yes. Pavlov is so much associated with all brain junk because he is a big leader in the field of behaviorism. The theory that human and animal behavior can be explained in terms of conditioning without appeal to thoughts or feelings, and that psychological disorders are best treated by altering behavior patterns. Backstory for Pavlov.
Oh, there's even more.
Backstory. Yeah, you have to get to know him. I don't know what hair color he had or anything, so you can imagine him however you like, although he looks like a brunette in the pictures, and he had a beard. He was born in Russia in 1849. He was the son of a priest and attended church school and then theological seminary, but Pavlov got very interested in Charles Darwin and Sechenov, the father of Russian physiology, and so he gave up his theological studies and pursued science. He studied under cardiovascular physiologists and gastrointestinal physiologists initially in his career, and throughout his career, actually. He was interested in all of the nervy networking thing and how your guts work and why. And that is how he stumbled upon the link. He was researching secretory activity of digestion in dogs.
Oh.
I was debating on how to pronounce secretory.
I like that.
I don't know.
Although secretory almost sounds like a patisserie.
Yes, it does. It sounds nicer. And that led to why he's paying attention to dog saliva, because that was what really clued him off. He noticed that he or the research assistants would be feeding the dogs, and pretty soon he noticed that the saliva production would increase because he's directly studying the saliva. He's got fistulas in the dog's salivary ducts, so little passageways, so he could study and get those levels. And that's when he noticed whether he had food or not, when he walked into the room, dog would salivate. And that's not a normal response unless it's associated with something. And so that's when he came up with the unconditioned stimulus is the dog food. The dog food makes the dog salivate. It's good. The dog needs it and likes it. The unconditioned response is salivation. Those two things would happen whether you taught the dog or not. Your body just knows to do it.
I see a cookie in a bakery. I drool.
Yes, because you know it's tasty. Your body needs calories. There's lots of reasons. Your brain likes
need,
sugar.
Want,
So then there's the neutral stimulus of the bell. He's a neutral stimulus bringing the food in. And so they tried, what if we put a bell with this? A bell is just a bell. It's not telling the dog to do anything. He doesn't have to respond to it. But when the bell and the food come together, eventually all you need is the bell. You don't have to have the food. But because the bell and the food happen at the same time, the brain has made a connection.
It's associating them.
So the conditioned stimulus leads to conditioned response. The bell alone creates the salivation.
Got it.
Now let's move into operant conditioning, because that's actually more what some of these things are. Operant conditioning is one of the children of Pavlov's work. That was Big B.F. Skinner. That's a name anybody who did anything in psychology or medicine or education, you've heard a lot of this. It's just a fun review for you where you don't have to write a paper now. But B.F. Skinner was born the same year, actually, that Pavlov won his Nobel Prize, incidentally, which is 1904. That's just a fun free fact that has really nothing to do. But B.F. Skinner, he realized these connections, you could create them through positive or negative reinforcement.
Negative. Which they tell you you're not supposed to do. I mean, doing dog training, you don't do negative reinforcement.
What about children training? How are we about that?
It works.
That's effective. My favorite recent example of this, and you see a lot of fun examples in pop culture, but I was watching The Big Bang Theory, and there's an episode, I think it's season 3, episode 3. There's an episode where Sheldon starts giving Penny chocolate when Penny does something Sheldon wants her to. So she moves out of his seat, and he says, "Penny, would you like a chocolate?" And she's like, "Thanks." And so pretty soon, Sheldon walks up, and she's doing something undesirable, like talking on the phone in the middle of their show. She sees Sheldon and walks out of the room without the chocolate. She doesn't need the chocolate anymore. He's trained her. So it's such a fun episode for those of us in that who enjoy that psychology realm. There's also, I'm putting it on our notes on the show notes. There's somebody's college project on Disney videos, Disney movies that demonstrate the operant conditioning, because there's positive and negative, and there's positives to get you to do something or to get you to just stop doing something. So there's 4 versions of this, 2 positives and 2 negatives. And so they show you Disney clips showing the examples of these. It's great because you're like, oh my gosh, that's right. So go view it. It's on the show notes. It's fun.
Do you have an example?
The example in this video for negative reinforcement is that Woody removes Buzz, who is the stimulus, so that Andy will continue his behavior of choosing Woody. So the desired behavior is that Andy would choose Woody. And so the negative thing is taking a thing away from him to continue him. He doesn't have that distraction anymore. So they show you the little clip. And
so he hides Buzz like in the toy chest. You can't see him. You won't pick him. I think we do this kind of stuff all the time, don't we?
Ooh, positive punishment was that Rafiki hits Simba on the head, which is a stimulus to stop Simba from thinking about the past. And they show you the clip. You can watch all the fun clips.
Yeah, but then Simba says, "I'm going to take away your stick," and he takes away his stick. So everybody kind of
nobody wins.
Nobody wins. We're going to move on from drooling dogs and positive reinforcement to something called Enclothed Cognition.
I like the sound of it.
Yes. So the theory behind this, we were listening to a podcast while we were on an epic road trip over to Portland, Oregon, and they mentioned this study published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology in 2012 by Hajo Adam and Adam Galinsky. So the enclothed cognition part, you have 2 factors. You have the symbolic meaning of clothes. So for example, and what they used in the study was a doctor's coat. The second factor is the physical experience of actually wearing those clothes.
Okay.
So the theory is that clothes have an influence on the wearer's psychological processes. So they've done some studies that indicate, if you show somebody a white lab coat and tell them it's a doctor's coat and ask them, what kind of qualities does this clothing have? They say that it indicates attentiveness and carefulness and educated level, maybe higher than themselves. They don't
think butcher, they think doctor.
No. Well, I guess that would all depend on your experience, wouldn't it? But overall, yes, people are thinking this is someone who's got their act together, right? So they had people going into test areas. So they're going to do some testing on them. And along the way, they're like, hey, hold on a second. Could you put on this doctor's coat and just, because we're working in here and we want to keep your clothes clean. And then we're going to give you an attention test. And they found that if people had on the doctor's coat in this situation, that so some had the coat, some did not. The ones with the coat performed better.
I totally believe that.
Yeah. The test that they were doing, and this is kind of a side note because this is so fun, was something called the Stroop effect test. That's a color chart where it's a graph of written words, okay?
I love these tests because they make me feel smart.
And The words are all colors. So, for example, this one's the word that is written is red, black, yellow, blue, white, brown, purple, and pink. But the words are written in a different color than the word. So the red word is written in blue. And what you have to do when you take this test is say the color, not the word. So I'm going to give Amy the Stroop test. She doesn't have a lab coat on, but she likes taking tests. So here you go.
All right. You just want me to say them?
Yeah, so say them.
Blue, pink, green, yellow, purple, pink, green, brown.
Ooh, you did well.
And the trick, it's to make them not words. Yes. Don't think of them as language. Think of them as shapes with color.
They had a huge chart that was about 40 words, and I found I got in about 20.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing the words, and I had to stop and just kind of blur them out again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if
you want to look up Stroop Effect test, and you can take one of these yourself. They're super fun. I found one where you could even time yourself.
Those are the ones where it gets me, because if I'm at my own pace, I'm fine.
There's
I can
pressure.
attentively. Yes, when it's timed, I do the same thing. My results decline.
Kind of taper off. Well, so after they did this with one group of people, they took it another step, and two groups coming to the test area. One group, they said, hey, we're still doing the work. We need to keep your clothes clean. Please put on the doctor's coat. The other group, same coat, they said, hey, we want to keep you clean. Put on the painter's jacket.
Oh.
And they had them go in and take the test. And they still found that the group who thought they were wearing a doctor's coat improved their selective attention, and they did better.
That's so interesting. I love those little funky.
You don't even realize you're doing it. So, one of the questions that the researchers had was when you put on a different outfit, say a police uniform and a vest, you're going to walk different, you're going to feel different and act different. What they haven't figured out is how long that effect lasts.
Because does the doorway effect have anything to do with it? Does your selective tension? There's so many factors in the way our brains work.
Yeah. So, and I've had this happen, especially at Halloween, if you put on like a witch's outfit and you're being all spooky or those kind of things. And
you put on your power tie.
You kind of embody that thing, or your power tie. Yeah. But then it also works in reverse. If you're wearing something that you're not comfortable in or has a bad association for you, then it's going to change your attitude there too.
Clothes with buttons, for instance, make me super crabby. Not down with it.
Tight elastic waists.
Yeah, I'm just noticing my jeans. Oh, can't even. I actually texted my boss the day before I had to return to work, and I said, I'm just really mourning this whole returning to buttons thing.
And being a grown-up.
Yep, I haven't really done it yet.
Yeah, I know. Me neither.
Kids don't come back for 2 more days as of this recording.
Yeah, that's true. I know you're not excited. As a person who works strictly from home.
Oh, yeah.
Although my kids are all old enough that they're not, when they were little, like 3rd grade, and then they'd be home.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't get in. There's nothing getting done.
And they're not helping with chores. They're just making everything worse.
No, and I have to, I'm writing or I'm working and I'm thinking and, Mom. Yeah.
Yep.
So I need to increase
your selective attention.
My selective attention.
And I'm sorry to report you're probably never going to be able to diminish that. And maybe in crowds, though, that mom effect. Your brain will always tune in to no matter whoever says mom if you're a parent.
It will, but I've found that the crying on an airplane, if it's not my kid crying,
your brain knows now.
I can tune that right out. I'm like, I feel bad.
Yes.
And I'll try to help, but it doesn't make me feel all...
your brain doesn't have that immediate wake you up response.
Panicky,
you sleep through that now. Yeah. What we're talking about is selective attention. I would like you to try to see your nose right now. This is my favorite example. You have to trace is closing one eye, and now she's like cross-eyed looking, but you can see your nose.
No, you can totally see it.
However... you never see your nose. You always and you never see your nose because your brain is filtering that out. And your brain filters out a ton of stuff. For instance, like your peripheral vision, it doesn't stop cold. It sort of just fades out because your brain's it should, in theory, have a perimeter. But your brain tapers it kind of, and it just sort of blurs out. If you're a sports fan, a rabid sports fan, or a very focused, a really interested reader, you will also you'll find this in all areas of your life. It's the only way we can really function well, actually, is that our brain selectively weeds out what it wants you to pay attention to most. So when you're driving, your brain is focusing, hopefully, first on the road.
Please.
You have a sense of urgency about that. And it's filtering out a lot of things, which is also, incidentally, if your brain doesn't think of a person on a bike as a vehicle, people on bikes and motorcycles, the brain can selectively filter them out. And so you read statistics of bikers and motorcyclists are more likely to be hit because of the way our brain works in some ways.
Because we're not even looking for them.
Nope. Your brain doesn't think of it as a car.
So does this go along with, there's a classic, and you can find this on YouTube. Usually it's a staged basketball game.
This is exactly it. Scientific American Keith Payne wrote an article about this. There's a study where two people are passing a basketball back and forth, and then they shoot this video, and then they tell a person, count how many times they pass that basketball back and forth. But they have superimposed a girl with an umbrella walking through. And they found that 79% of the time, people failed to notice the girl walking through. A girl with an umbrella walking through a basketball game. They counted all the passes. They did not notice the girl, because their job was not the girl. She was not important to the brain. It filtered it. Now, you might be able to get them to remember it if you hypnotized them, because your brain saw it. And your brain does know it exists, but it didn't think it was important, so it shoved it to the side. Didn't put it in long-term memory.
We don't need that.
Yeah. It filtered it, sorted it. It's junk mail.
So the song This Is America just came out,
last summer?
And really amazing video by Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. And I was reading some commentary on it after I'd seen the video. I think I'd watched the video 4 or 5 times, because the way he moves when he's dancing, to me,
it's very elegant.
With a dance background, it's fascinating to watch him. And they said, and then the horse riding through is a symbol of something or other. And I thought, and went
we didn't
back.
watch the same video.
No, and there's a sequence where they're in the warehouse, and he's in a group with some kids, and they're dancing. And in the background, a man rides a white horse right through and I thought, I hadn't seen it because I was busy watching something else.
Your brain filtered it.
And that was a big thing.
Yes. It's really big things. One of the other studies that he talked about in the article was ghosts walking through a courtyard, people in white sheets walking through a courtyard, just a populated courtyard with people. Nobody noticed it. They're just going about, nobody noticed it. And that's weird. That is not everyday stuff.
In a way, I guess, then, the selective attention should be taught probably in 7th grade, to let all of those kids know, they're sitting in the lunchroom and they're all thinking they're all looking at me. They're all looking at me. No one's looking at you.
No, they probably didn't even remember you were there unless you barfed.
No. I did that in 3rd grade. And yes, they do remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that feeling that everyone's looking at me. No, we're looking at our lunch and we're looking at our phone and we're just moving on.
Yeah. This is all interesting. I'm going to tell you it's interesting, and it is because I told you. Mr. Payne gets further into the subject and talks about that simple selectivity. But your brain can be selectively selective based on life experiences, your interests. So if you're super into Man United and you love soccer, if you are talking with somebody at a party and you hear that buzz in the background, if somebody starts talking about soccer, your brain is going to tune into it because your brain has a heightened interest in that. And so your unconscious screener, is what they call that, will prioritize more based on your interests. Let me look.
Would also be based on need and things. Because I was thinking, like, if I was really hungry and I was someplace and then, a little food cart off in the distance and somebody's talking, I would probably notice that or smell the fries before anyone else.
Yeah.
I'd be like, there are French fries within a 5-mile radius. We must go.
Yes. It's a very fascinating, interlinked subject. It's not simple at all. One of the things, the roads I meandered down and had to cut it off when I was looking at this is when you talk about selective attention, there is research into, do people with ADHD, is their unconscious screener not a good screener? So are they unable to filter? Yes. Or people with schizophrenia, there's also a lot of, is your screener super crappy and you have some of these other factors happening, which heightens all of that. So that unconscious screener is super important in your daily life. We don't think about it, but the ability to not see everything and prioritize it with the same importance, to be able to prioritize what's happening in front of you, is really important. Like when you're driving, pretty much every aspect. When you're working for an employer, they want you attending to their work, not somebody's sharpening their pencil over there. If you can't filter that out, you're so unproductive.
Oh, look at Amy's pineapple socks.
Right? Exactly. Every little thing has the same level of priority to your brain when your unconscious screener is not good at its job.
That would be exhausting.
Yes. It makes me have so much more sympathy to kids that are busy movers that I think, okay, you get some extra latitude.
Yeah. And before we go, I have a cool yawn fact. Sir Francis Walsh, a British neurologist, noticed in 1923, he was working with patients that were paralyzed on one side of their bodies. It didn't say specifically if it was stroke, but I imagine that's probably what was going on. He found that when they yawned, they would spontaneously regain motor function on the paralyzed side of their body during the yawn.
Really?
So for 4 to 6 seconds, they would be able to move.
Everything moved. Wow.
And they still don't know why.
Wow.
Really? They think that the yawn is in such a primal part of the body that we can I don't know.
Wow.
They don't know. They were like, huh.
But that's so hopeful. That
Right?
maybe someday we'll figure something out.
Maybe you could figure out a way to move. And they talked to a fellow that had some sort of Parkinson-y hand paralysis. And he says he looks forward to yawns because when he yawns, he can crack his knuckles on that hand.
Oh, I would spend my whole day watching the yawn video just so you could have that experience.
Crack.
Yeah. This is what I love about how the brain works. It is so fascinating.
So please come visit us at brainjunkpodcast.com. We have pictures and we've got the Stroop effect test and I've got yawning videos and Amy's got dog drooling and all sorts of fun stuff there. And for this and other wonderful episodes, look for Brain Junk wherever you find your podcasts. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please, please, please.
Yeah. We tweet at MyBrainJunk, and you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at BrainJunk Podcast. Drop us a line at brainjunkpodcast@gmail.com. We want listener mail. You could ask us questions and send episode ideas too. Trace and I will catch you next time when we share more of everything you never knew you wanted to know. And I guarantee you will not be bored.